This one, there's so many bugs. I got a bucket full of zinnias. I got a bucket full of zinnias. Oh, anyways, gotta stop there. Otherwise, we're gonna have to pay royalties. Ah, the flies. Hey everyone, it's Brittany here from Green Bee Flowers in Strathroy. We're here at the Green Door Garden Patch today, and I'm coming out to give you a garden tour so you can see how much things have changed in the last 3 weeks. So I'm going to start by walking down the rows, discuss kind of what's in them, and then we will show you how we're going to harvest some of the flowers today. So the first exciting thing is we have all of these absolutely gorgeous zinnias. So we only actually have about a quarter of the zinnias that we have planted this year at this specific plot. The rest of our zinnias are actually over at the G&G plot, which is about a 6-minute drive away from this farm. But you can see here we have these gorgeous Bennery Giants planted. So this one here is the coral, I think. And this is already a fan favorite. We have a bunch of these going out next week to a florist for a wedding. We, here in Southwestern Ontario, we get a lot of Japanese beetles. So we find with the Japanese beetles that they actually really like the lighter colored zinnias. So like for that reason, we didn't actually plant any of the floret Lilliput lilac this year because they got eaten. But they're into my whites. So you can see there's a little bit of damage already from our Japanese beetles here. They skeletonize the leaves. Best way to get rid of those is actually just to come through with a bucket of water and just like tap them off into. They're not looking too bad at the moment. Some of that is just that we have good predators here in the garden. I saw a praying mantis in here the other day, so that's definitely helpful. Down the line a little further, these are my favorite. These are the Bennery Giants, the carmine. I think these are just the most stunning flower, and I really love them paired right next to the Bennery Giants in yellow. We planted a whole bunch of the yellow variety Bennerys this year, specifically because we do a lot of bouquets for a corn farm stand, and these sell really well. Now, I don't know if you can see here, look at the little bee. We got a little honeybee taking a nap. So cute. And then once we come down the line a little further, we have some of our Queen Lime varieties. So this one in here, this is Queen Lime Orange. This one also got ravaged last year by Japanese beetles. I'm happy to see that it's doing a little better this year. Pull that weed out. Last year we had cosmos planted in this section, so you can see we have some cosmos that reseeded themselves. We're just gonna let that happen. Pull out another hogweed. Oh look, a few more. You guys get to watch me weed. So we come back up on this side here. We have the Bennery Giant. I believe this one is the lilac. And then I can't remember which one this is. I'll go back and look to see what we ordered. And then coming up on this side, we have more of the Queen Limes. So these ones here, these are the Queen Lime Blushes, and I just love these because if you look here, so this one's got some funky petals. The centers are this really beautiful, like blush pink, and then the petals are green. And as they age, they start to get this really lovely variegation here in the petals where they almost look like glow in the dark or iridescent. On this side, we've got more of the Bennery's Orange. This is probably the best example. I love it when they're at this stage where you can see some of their green petals coming up. and they're just starting to turn that orange on the outside. As they age, they become more like this here. So this is like a very small patch of our zinnias. The next rows here we have our dahlias, and so a couple weeks ago we took you out to the dahlia section and you watched Nick and I stake the dahlias. So they've grown quite a bit and they're ready for their second round of staking. So we can just kind of have a look over here. So they're absolutely massive. And these are all of our propagate dahlias. So these are the ones that we cut from tubers, basically allowed them to root, and then planted them in the ground. So these have been kind of in process since about March or April, but they're getting huge. Like, I'm so excited about these flowers here. So, and they're all starting to get buds. We have a lot of really great predators in the garden too. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a wasp there, paper wasp. It's great, we want those. They kill bugs we don't like. We just don't bother them because they take out the earwigs. But you can see here we're getting so many shoots that are going to produce some really, really, really nice big, oh, another paper wasp. Some nice big flowers. We have some over here already that are starting to get their buds. So in a couple days I'm actually going to come through here with taffeta bags, and we are going to cover the buds with taffeta bags to help keep the earwigs, the Japanese beetles, and all of those things off of the blooms, so that when we harvest them, the blooms are not eaten and they look really, really good. But I'm so impressed with how this section of the garden looks. These dahlias are just looking beautiful. We've had nothing but rain here for about the past 10 days. Had one day where it wasn't raining, and so the dirt is really moist, which dahlias don't usually like. We are lucky because these are actually planted on an angle, so the water runs off and it also gets into the ground, and it looks a lot better because we haven't had to pump our fields. So that's been really great. I feel really sorry for a lot of my flower farmer friends who've had to go through their fields over the last week and actually bring in a pump. To put it in perspective, last year this garden around this time, it would have been so dry in July that we were actually trucking water out to the farm in order to irrigate because the wells had run dry. So, British Columbia, Serena and Ian, please take your weather back. We would like our sunshine back. Another row of dahlias. We have a few shoots of milkweed that are still coming up in here. We can check the bottoms, but I don't think there's any eggs on them. We leave the milkweed because the homeowners that live here actually have a good chunk of the land around us where they've planted a lot of native trees. And so milkweed is one of those things that we're actually keeping in order to kind of protect some natural habitat. Native trees here being things like different types of maples and oaks. Part of that is you can kind of see through the fields over here, right beside us. There's just tons of milkweed growing. And so the milkweed provides obviously the food that we need for our monarchs, but then it's really cool because later in the summer there's so many monarchs here, and it's just so fun to walk through our flower patches and just be like amongst the wildlife. I love it. Up this row, so some context, I hate marigolds. I hate them. They are my least favorite flower. I personally think that they smell disgusting. However, my husband loves them. And one of the girls that we had working with us last year, who is part Mexican, also loves marigolds because they remind her of her home. So we planted a lot of them for two reasons. One, they sell really well in our market bouquets that we send off to the farm stands, but secondly, they are really, really good natural repellent for a lot of pests. Planting them on either side here and like right beside our dahlias is also kind of acting as like a natural shield around our garden. They're the exact center of our garden, in the same way you would plant marigolds kind of near your tomatoes or in your garden at home just to kind of keep away the pests. We've done that here in the hope that they will help deter some of those crappy insects that I don't want in my garden. I have no issues if the Japanese beetles decide to take out my marigolds. They won't, because why would they take out the flower that I don't like? But some people really love the marigolds. They produce a lot of blooms. As a flower farmer, they're actually a really, really good flower to produce. Good sized blooms. So these will go into bouquets. And we planted them in all different colors. So I've got some that are like lighter oranges. We've got some of the darker oranges. I actually have some that are yellow as well, some that are single petaled, some that are full double petaled. All of them are here. On this patch over here of weeds is actually carnations. This is the last chance essentially for the carnations this year. This is the second year we've grown them. This year at least we netted them. Last year we didn't net these. I don't know if I like growing them. They're kind of, I mean, I say that now and then they'll bloom in a couple weeks and I'll probably decide to keep them again for one more year because that's always how things like this go. But at this point in the season, I've kind of decided we're going to cull them for next year because they're taking up valuable space and I don't want them here anymore. So they're going to go. On this side, we have a patch of chocolate lace flower. So the lace flower is really cool. You can actually see, unlike regular Queen Anne's lace, chocolate Dara has coloring to it, so it gets this really beautiful like burgundy color to it. Next year we're doing an entire patch of this. I think I had originally intended to do an entire patch of this year, and then we had a really late start on some of our seeds, and I believe this was one of them, so we kind of just cut our losses and like rolled with it. So next year I'm going to try to be a little bit more on it. Same thing with bee balm. Next year, annual bee balm is getting a whole row. But I mean, like, this is a fun one because you can just walk through here and just see all of the bees and the pollinators on this. So like, there's like a little pollinator fly going on there. There's some stink bugs mating, but whatever. There's so many bees. Like, there's another bumblebee back in there. I love this one for the garden. So beautiful. Down here, we have mignonette. Here's another one that the bees loved. Again, it has to be weeded. We haven't been out here in probably about a week. It's just been so wet and it's been so rainy and we haven't had a chance to actually like get out here and do some serious work. So we're gonna be doing today while we harvest. A random patch of cosmos that we stuck in because we had Craspedia planted in here, but it did not survive. So Craspedia, this is the second year in the row that we have had terrible luck with it, and I'm cutting my losses on Craspedia, and next year we are not growing it. And I genuinely think it's just our stuff works in different climates, and that's one that's not going to work so well here. We have more zinnias planted. This Dusty Miller kind of hiding in here. So McKenna's job today, she's behind the camera at the moment. Her job today is going to be finding all of this. Weeding it out. There's verbena planted on the other side, which you currently can't see. Slow start to the season. And then we have our Celosia, which also needs a good weeding because it's been so rainy. So going through these this week as well, the girls will be actually weeding through this tomorrow. But you can see they're starting to get their nice ends on them. Ah, bugs. So this one here is from Floret. I actually really like, here's a better one. I really like this one. This was really popular last year, especially in some of our mason jar arrangements. We ordered a lot more Celosia this year than we did last year, and I ordered a whole bunch of different types. So we actually have Celosia planted at both farms. Here we planted the stuff that needed a little bit more attention, and the stuff that I wanted to baby because it is the Floret seeds. While Floret's not feasible to buy in large quantities, it is nice to have some of their seed handy because it's trendier. Here's a new variety for 2021 through William Dan. This is called, I think it's Sunday Purple. I really like this one. Look at how beautiful that is. So really love this one here for the length. So these are stems that we'll be able to use in our bouquets. And then this one I love just for the color. This is more similar to like a coxcomb Celosia. If we keep letting it go, it's gonna get really big. But I just think it's so cool. And then we have the cosmos. So I have a deep love in my heart for cosmos. It's one of the first flowers that I grew successfully and actually sold a lot of. Like 4 years ago when we first started selling flowers at our farmers market, and so every year I keep adding a lot more cosmos. We have more planted at our second farm as well, but I'm going to actually go through today and show you how to harvest cosmos. It's one of those things where like It's a little counterintuitive to when you think you should be harvesting, but once you kind of know at what point to grab the flower, then you will get a much longer base life on them, because cosmos are notoriously bad for like shelf life. So if you get them at the right time, you can get a couple extra days on them, and so I will show you that a little later in the video. Look at that ladybug. Hello, Mr. Ladybug. Kill all my aphids for me. Thank you, sir. This is the dahlia field. So this has changed so much in the last couple weeks, and I'm so happy about it. They need to be netted, basically, is where we're getting with this. So we had started, and then we got 10 straight days of rain, so we haven't actually been out here, you know, in a week to look at any of these. And they're like 3 times the size they were of last week. A lot of them last week when we were here were kind of around this size here, but they were just little babies. Right, they probably, these ones will need to be pinched today. And now they're huge. A lot of them are putting out flower buds. So if you come down the row here, right, you can see they've got flower buds. And we're actually gonna counterintuitively pinch that center one off so that these two, it'll put more energy into the side two there. Then we'll have better dahlias. Not necessarily more, but better dahlias to harvest. But you can see, like, look at how many awesome buds there are coming along here. Like, I'm so excited for like 2 weeks when this whole thing is in bloom. Oh, I think we have our first flower. Oh, we have our first flower. Oh, guys. Couldn't tell you what variety this is. We have our first flower. Yay. And I'm actually going to pinch that off because I want the other ones to bloom. Look! Thumbnail. Oh, awesome. So I had gone through the process of starting to label these, but I think in the rain a lot of my labels have come off, so I'm going to have to go back through, I think, with paint sticks and actually label the individual plants. It's going to be a lot of work, but c'est la vie. Going down the aisle here, so a good chunk of these, I think like the first, I don't know, about up to here, these rows are all miscellaneous. Some of them are from last year. The host at this farm actually as well has a whole bunch of heirloom dahlias. So one of our projects this year, basically building her stock up. So she gave us a whole bunch of tubers, and from those tubers we actually propagated. And so we're going to be able to create a bunch of genetically identical dahlias to what she has, because they are the dahlias of her husband's dad, I believe, or uncle or something. And so they've been in the family for a lot of years, and they don't necessarily have varieties on them anymore. So part of what we're going to be doing this summer is propagating and IDing those so that we can actually gift some of those back to her at the end of the summer with fresh tubers. Because at some point tubers get to the point where they don't produce as well anymore. So you actually want to create new tubers and encourage new tuber growth on your dahlias. These rows down here, where there's a lot of holes, these are actually new tubers for this year. So very early on after we planted, we got like a couple of days of like very heavy rain, and the problem was that we lost some tubers to that, so just general tuber rot. But there was a few, these work really well as back scratchers. There was a couple sections here where we had some animals that got into them, and I think just the quality of the tubers wasn't there. I'm not going to tell you what companies we order from, because like I don't want to badmouth those companies or those farms, but it is one that I haven't had great success with necessarily in the past, and we did spend a lot of money on those tubers, so I won't be ordering from those again. However, what I will say is these rows down here, so you can see my 2 fullest rows of my brand new dahlias. These rows here are from Oak Ridge Dahlias. She's up in the Welland area here in Ontario. I will link her page down below. She is, in my opinion, one of the best dahlia breeders in Ontario. We have had nothing but great success. Now, last year we had a super early frost, so I had a bunch of like cafe au lait dahlias from her that didn't actually get a chance to bloom, but their tubers were beautiful. And so we were actually able to harvest a bunch of hers, and like the plants that look so good up at the top, a lot of those are new tubers from her plants from last year that we then split and added a whole bunch of plants to our stock this year. So I think I'm going to stick with my tried and true Oak Ridge dahlias. Marion, you do a great job with your dahlias, and I'm super excited to see these bud up and to bloom. You can see some of them already are starting. This one doesn't have a label on it because why would it? But you can see here. So a couple more weeks, these will all be blooming. So that's the farm tour. Next, I'm going to talk to you guys about how we harvest. Yeah, a lot's changed here in 3 weeks, which I think is the last time we did the videos, so dahlias. So there is actually a very correct time in which to harvest cosmos. So when you come through and you cut cosmos, naturally what we think that we need to do is actually harvest cosmos when they're fully open, because we look at these flowers and they're big. Get out of here, Mr. Warren. They're big and they're beautiful, and those are typically what we think that we want to put into bouquets. So for instance, this guy here, this one here is what you think you would want, right? When you harvest a cosmo. It's big, it's beautiful, it's the showstopper, but in fact, take off those end pieces there. In fact, this isn't when you want to harvest them at all. We'll keep this bloom on here. The point that you want to get them is actually right here. So just as they are starting to open, you can see there, that's the point when you want to get the cosmo. The reason we want to get them there is because at this point the bees have already been in them. You can see that center of the cosmo has been pollinated already. It's not going to last very long in a bouquet or a vase, but this one here is still closed. So this is the point actually where we want to harvest the cosmo for the longest vase life for the customer. Just going to go through and harvest some cosmos. The other thing I do as I'm combing the cosmo patch, usually twice a week, is deadheading. Helps to promote more growth. Cosmos are notorious for being a what we call cut and come again flower. So I usually go through and deadhead the ones. So like that one is spent. You can't sell it. So it goes away. Bye-bye. This here, this guy, this is the absolute perfect one. We're gonna harvest this one because this one will last at least a good 4 to 5 days in a vase. It's really important too with cosmos when you're harvesting to make sure that you let them sit at least for 12 hours in a cooler spot, not a fridge. They have to actually acclimate. They need to rehydrate. So we put them usually, we have a basement that we'll put our flowers in after we harvest, and they'll sit there typically for about 12 hours before we start arranging with them. And then the other thing with cosmos too is you're always going to harvest down where you get to a node. So for instance, one that you can probably see, so this guy here, we would basically harvest it down to like a point where there's 2 more shoots coming off, because that's going to promote the plant to get bushier, to promote produce more flowers. And then I always take these side pieces off as I go down the line. So there we go.
Okay,
that's totally going on, by the way. Gary, what are you doing? Oh, you're gonna go see over there. Gary's our resident farm cat. He sort of belongs to everybody. He's like 11, 12 years old. Hi, Gary. zinnias. As you can see, we have a lot of zinnias that we need to harvest today, which is great. But basically, when you are harvesting zinnias, you're going to do the wiggle test. So for something like this, if you wiggle it back and forth and it's not floppy, so you can see this one's nice and straight, this one is actually ready to harvest. So what we do is we come down usually to a node, so down here, and then you're just going to snip it off, and that gives you your stem of zinnias. If you look at this one, for instance, this one's got a nice little wiggle to it as opposed to this one, right? So this one's not ready. So even though the flower looks like it should be ready to go, it's not ready yet. Zinnias, you want to make sure you harvest zinnias when they are fully open. Zinnias will not continue to open for you in the vase, so it's really important to do that wiggle test before you harvest your zinnias. So here's another one. So this one, ready to go. So we're going to come down to a node. The reason I've chosen this node here is you can already see that the second round of growth is coming off. So it's basically every time you harvest a zinnia, it's like pinching it again. It'll shoot off more stems. Whereas this guy here, if you wiggle him, see how it's got a nice little bend to it as you wiggle? That one's not ready yet. So harvesting them at this stage is actually going to help keep them straighter in your vase. It's going to make them easier to design with, and it's actually closer to what florists want too if you're going to be selling wholesale to florists. So we're going to go through now. We're going to actually harvest this entire row of zinnias. We'll probably be able to fill up at least a bucket, maybe two, and then we'll check back in at the end. Genetically fascinating zinnia. It was obviously not what we want, but it has 3 seed pod heads. Never seen that before. What? Gary, don't knock over the cam. Gary almost knocked over the camera. Okay, come here. Can you come occupy Gary so that I can finish this clip? All of this is going on, by the way. Okay, so that's all for us today. Hope you enjoyed this video. It's been a while since we have taken you out to the farm. It's been a while since I've done a video entirely, and that's literally just because we've been so busy starting with all of our summer chores. So I know the words that I was gonna say. So that is it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, like and subscribe below to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed our farm tour. I hope that you enjoyed our harvest videos, and next time we'll show you how we turn all of these into our beautiful market bouquets that we sell at the farmers market, that we sell at our in-garage flower bar, and also that we bring to the various farm markets and corn stands around our area. So thank you so much. Flowering, flowering, yeah!